The Philadelphia 76ers are now one of the best teams in the NBA and one of the true contenders, regardless of how some people may view them. However, as we are all aware, it was a struggle to get to this point. We all remember the process, and we are only a few years removed from the Sixers being at the bottom of the league. So let's go back towards the beginning of the process, where the Sixers had the worst start to a season in NBA history. The year is 2014. GM Sam Hinkie only has one season under his belt to this point, where he blew up the roster. The season before, the team finished 19-63, and there is no reason to expect an improvement. The top two players that the Sixers drafted in 2014 weren't even going to play this season. Joel Embiid is injured and Dario Saric is remaining overseas for at least a few more years. On top of that, guys like Thaddeus Young and Evan Turner are no longer in Philadelphia as well, who were some of the best players in the team before getting traded at the deadline. So going into the 2014-2015 season, we knew the Sixers were gonna suck. Like bad. Everyone kind of figured they would be the worst team in the league, or at least the second or third worst team at its very best. But I don't think anyone thought that they would be this bad, however. So the NBA season rolls around. Philadelphia opens the season in Indiana and throws out what very well might be the worst opening day starting lineup ever. I mean, just look at this, it's awful. Tony Wroten, Nerlens Noel, Hollis Thompson, Chris Johnson, Henry Sims. The only one that turned out to be anything is Nerlens Noel, who's just a role player. So on cue, the Sixers lose to Indiana by 12. And the next three games are all double-digit losses as well. Not too much excitement. But after the 0-4 start, Philly actually played in two straight close games. The first of which being against another 0-4 team, the Orlando Magic. Although they kept it close, the Sixers fell 91-89 after scoring only 14 in the fourth quarter. Tony Wroten had a crazy game of 27 points, 8 assists, and 5 steals, so that's something. Maybe he gave the fans some hope that he could be something for the future. And in their next game, they actually kind of almost gave the Bulls their second loss of the season, losing by just 3 after a huge fourth quarter. But regardless, 2 straight tough losses and now the Sixers are 0-6. And then the next 2 games were not very kind to Philly. Right after that, a 32-point loss to the Raptors and then a 53-point loss to the Mavs. That's definitely one of the worst losses in NBA history. But the next game in Houston will be the closest the Sixers come to winning during the stretch. So this game against the Rockets, Philly led by as much as 13 in this game, and led by 3 with 37 seconds left in the game. Unfortunately, back-to-back turnovers and a game-winning layup by James Harden extended the streak for the Sixers, who following the game are now sitting at 0-9. So there's not much action after that game for a while. They lost by 25 to the Spurs, 11 to Boston, 26 to Phoenix, 8 to the Knicks, 10 to Portland, and then 8 to Brooklyn. And then a 7-point loss to Dallas, which was never really that close, and then by 6 to the Spurs, which, again, was never really that close. So after all of that, the team is now sitting at 0-17. Winning seems basically impossible at this point. It looks like Philly's on track to have the worst record in the history of the league. There was a lot of blowout losses to get to this point, and the times that scores were even close, it really wasn't most of the time. They only had 2 or 3 games that they ever really had a chance of winning late in the game. I know the biggest question that you probably have right now is, what team was the Sixers' first win and how did it happen? Well, in Game 18 of the season, the 0-17 Sixers marched into Minnesota to face the 4-12 Timberwolves in a game of what they call basketball. But this game was not a great display of the wonderful sport. I mean, when an 0-17 team faces a 4-12 team, you're not expecting many great things to happen, to say the least. And we just knew what kind of game we were in for when at halftime the score was 34-32, the Timberwolves. So both teams were on pace to score under 70. Great. But a late run in the fourth gave the Sixers enough to finally get their first win of the season, winning 85-77. There was just a combined 8 threes made in this game. Both teams shot under 40% from the field, and it was definitely one of the worst displays of NBA basketball you'll ever see. But the Sixers got it done. 1-17. How sweet it sounds. What's funny from that game is that in the long run, the Sixers actually ended up having a better record than the Wolves this year. Philly ended 18-64 while the Wolves won just 16 games. And the Sixers really had an 0-17 start just so that they can end up with a third pick and take Jahlil Okafor in the draft. But still, regardless of how this season ended and how the draft went, all the losing did work out for the Sixers. I mean, Philly now finds himself as one of the best teams in the league, albeit flawed, but they do have a lot going for them. They have a legit superstar in Joel Embiid, and they have plenty of talent around him, although it may not fit. But will we ever have a team have a worse start to a season than this? I mean, 0-17 is honestly impressive at that point. They couldn't even get a lucky win. I think this is one of those records that will never be broken, and if it is, it'll be something long in the future. So I want to take a look at some of the Sixers stats from this season. You can see the leading scorer was Tony Wroten with 17 a game. And I mean, he only played 30 games, but to have Tony Wroten as your leading scorer on the team, I mean, that has to be one of the worst leading scorers in NBA history. I'm not sure if 30 games qualifies, but I mean, that's a yikes. Michael Carter-Williams led the team in assists, but he only played 41 games. And this was actually his sophomore season, and I believe this is the season that he was traded as well. And he was also hurt a little bit during the streak. But some of the main rotation players in this team throughout the year: Robert Covington, who had the best career out of everyone on this team; Isaiah Cannon, who he never panned out; Ish Smith, he's always been a backup point wherever he's been; Alexei Shved, he was a solid player for a couple of years in the league. Mbah a Moute's always been a backup role player on the team. KJ McDaniels, old Jason Richardson, Hollis Thompson, Thomas Robinson, Henry Sims. I mean, they had 25 players suit up for them this season. And I mean, I do remember this season, but I just want to know from the Sixers fans' perspective, what was it like watching this team? Like, you go into every game knowing that you're going to lose, and most of the players on the team won't even be part of the future. But let me know what you guys think. I really enjoy making these videos, so if you do enjoy it, please leave a like. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching.